at Wageningen University and Research. Welcome everyone who's online. Today, this event, this masterclass is part of the Nature-Based Futures Challenge, Imagining a Nature-Based Future for Bangladesh. This is organized by Wageningen University and Research in collaboration with the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. My name is Mieke de Wit. I will be hosting this masterclass today. And I work for the Wageningen Biodiversity Initiative, who's also a partner in this challenge. And in my work at the Wageningen Biodiversity Initiative, we're all about connecting people to work on solutions for biodiversity loss. And I've learned that it's super important that we all work together, that we work, among scientists, but also involving stakeholders, local communities, policymakers, and especially that we as scientists work across disciplines, that we work across silos. So we have to work all together, and I think that's what you'll be doing in student teams. And it's important to take an integrated approach, and I think you will hear much more about that from one of our speakers. But I think it's becoming so clear that we cannot look at these crises in isolation. They are coupled crises: biodiversity loss, climate change, and they accelerate each other. And when we look towards solutions, they have to work for everything at once. Those are the only real solutions. Okay, so on a personal note, I wanted to share with you that they often say that the youth is our hope for the future. And I think there is some truth in that. But of course, we cannot wait for the next generation to solve the problems that we have now. So we have to work all on this together, and we have to take action now. And I think it's great that we have a challenge like this, where students can actually learn or work on putting their knowledge into action. And so I think we have to work together with the young generations, with local communities, and with nature, so that we all work together towards a future that is good for people and planet. Okay, I think this all comes together really nicely in this challenge, where you get to design a future for the Bangladesh Delta. But where to start? This is quite a big question, I think. So that's what this session is all about. And we have two excellent speakers for you who I hope will inspire you to find the right solutions and imagining a future, and who will also provide some guidance. So let me change the program. So there should be a next slide. There we go. So the two speakers, I'll introduce them now. There will be plenty of time for questions. So please, during the presentation, think of your question. And we also have someone moderating the questions from the chat online. So do post your questions if you're online. The first speaker is Tim van Hattum. He works here at Wageningen University and Research as the head of the climate program. He's a climate expert and writer, and he has more than 25 years of experience as a consultant, policy advisor, and researcher, and works on climate and water issues in the Netherlands and internationally. And then the second speaker is Maheen Khan from WWF Netherlands, where she is an international climate resilience advisor, and where she was also involved as a strategic advisor for the Amplifying Voices for Justice Climate Action project. And in 2017, she also founded the Monochrome Sustainable Fashion Line, a startup from Bangladesh. Towards the end, we will have Marta Eggers. So she is organizing this challenge to discuss some of the practicalities. And again, in the end, there will be some questions that you can ask about the process of the challenge. So please leave those questions until the end. So without further ado, Tim, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to see so many young people here because, well, if we talk about the future, we cannot do that without involving all of you and letting you design how the future, how you want the future to look like. So my name is Tim van Hattum, head of the climate program here at Wageningen University and Research. Well, doing a lot of research on climate change, focusing on nature-based solutions. And I like challenges. So 3 weeks ago, I finished the Jungfrau Marathon, one of the heaviest and the most beautiful marathons in the world, in Switzerland. And the finish is here next to the Eiger Glacier. And there you can see climate change straight into the ice. If you walk there, and this is very close to the finish, 1 kilometer left, you see the glacier, well, becoming smaller and smaller. And we all know, of course, this is our fresh water supply. So, well, climate change is already there. And I often compare the climate challenge with a marathon. We need a long-term approach. We have a very clear goal, 1.5 degrees. And the time is running out, and the pathways to get there are becoming steeper and steeper. Well, and this reminded me of this climate marathon. So together with 10 climate experts, we decided, why don't we run this marathon to create awareness for the impact of climate change and awareness for the melting glaciers and the importance of climate action. With a climate stripe t-shirt. And if you look very closely, you can see my race number is 2120, which is a special number. I recently discovered it's an angel number, and it's a symbol for having a vision about creating a better future. So, well, we have to look at. We need a long-term vision. We have to look at the year 2120 and maybe beyond to create that better future. Before we go to 2120, well, if you want to show the climate problem in one picture, this picture is, I think, showing the whole story. You could say the world is on fire and we are still playing a round of golf. This is not Photoshop, this is a real picture. We are very busy with solving short-term problems. And of course, we know that climate change is the issue of the 21st century. Who of you have read the latest IPCC report? Well, about 5%, I think. Well, I brought you the summary because I think this is the key message of the latest IPCC report. We know it's warming. It's us. It's man-made. We're absolutely sure. It's very serious. But the fifth point is, I think, the most important point, and that is also the key message of the latest IPCC report. We can still fix it. It's not too late for climate action. We have the solutions. We all have to start doing it, and we need global climate action. This picture was from the latest IPCC report showing that, well, children that are born today will experience at least 7 times more heat waves than my generation. So it's also showing that climate change is already there, and we cannot ignore that. We also have to adapt to the impact of climate change that is already there. And this sentence, I think, was the most important sentence of that report. It said, like, the actions implemented in this decade will have impacts for thousands of years. So everything we do in, well, the next years will have serious impact for, well, hundreds or thousands of years. So we need action now because we need to do the good things. But we focus a lot on climate change. It was already said, we have also another crisis. Biodiversity loss is, I think, maybe a bigger crisis than climate change. And the latest IPBES report said that 1 million species are about to extinct. so which is a serious problem. And we are starting to realize that climate change and biodiversity are very much interconnected. Climate change is accelerating biodiversity loss, and biodiversity loss is accelerating climate change. So we really need an integrated approach, and we cannot solve them one by one, and we cannot focus alone on technical solutions. We need to start working with nature. Well, all these messages, create also, it's not very strange that 70% of the world population is extremely worried about their future. If I ask here, who's worried about climate change and biodiversity loss? Okay, makes sense. So everybody is getting scared. Eco-anxiety is a serious problem, especially under young people. But I think we have to, and therefore we need a new narrative. We have to change the narrative to create a narrative of hope and tell people about what we have to do, what solutions we have, because there's also a lot of good news. We have the solutions, we have the money, we have the knowledge to create a better future. And maybe what is lacking, and the most important thing that is lacking, is the power of imagination, the power with which we built cathedrals in the past. The power of imagination can help us to create images about a better future. And that's, I think, what we need to do. And what we have to do is very clear. So, of course, we need climate mitigation, reduce the emissions towards zero by 2050, and preferably faster. We already have to adapt because the world is already 1.2 degree warmer. We are moving to an at least 1.5 degree warmer world. So we need to adapt to the impact of climate change that is already there. And we have to do that by restoring biodiversity. So an important part of the narrative is that we start understanding that we have to start working with nature. The planet doesn't need us, we need the planet. And this is very well represented by this picture. It's called the wedding cake, made by the Stockholm Resilience Institute. That is showing that the biosphere, a healthy biosphere, is very important for our society. And the life on land, the life in water, the availability of water, and climate change adaptation and mitigation. If we don't act on these issues, we will never reach the other sustainable development goals. And that's where nature-based solutions come in. Nature-based solutions can help us to sequester carbon, can help to reach the Paris Agreement goals by 1/3, and also can help us to create resilience for the impact of climate change. So our soils, our wetlands, our water systems, our forests are the best climate solutions we have. So we have to start working with nature. And there are a lot of definitions about nature-based solutions. This is one from the European Union that says solutions that are inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective, simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits and help build resilience. But nature-based solutions still get little attention. We have a lot of evidence about nature-based solutions. We know that they are effective. We have a lot of pilot studies that show that nature-based solutions are very smart solutions. But we have to scale them all over the world. And it would be fantastic to visualize how a nature-based future would look like. So that's what we did 3 years ago for the Netherlands. We thought we wanted to put the importance of nature-based solutions on the map and show how a nature-based future for the Netherlands could look like. And if you look to the Netherlands, well, it's a low-lying delta, and one of the most densely populated countries in the world, apart from Bangladesh. A rich country, also one of the happiest nations in the world, but our country is facing a lot of challenges. sea level rise, flood risk from the rivers, droughts, heat waves even. So we really need to act on that. And we also have a lot of developments going on. The energy transition, nature restoration, transition in our food system. And we still want to build 1 million houses even in the next 10 years. So our country really needs a long-term vision of where we want to go and how we want to realize all this. And we thought, why don't we create a nature-based vision for the Netherlands? And we first started to design 5 guiding principles for redesigning our country. And the first one is maybe the most important one, that we said, okay, we have to start working with nature. So the natural system of our soils, our water system should be leading in redesigning our country. And we also said water is becoming really, really important, because we are used to get rid of the water as soon as possible to prevent floods, but we now experience a lot of droughts. So every drop of rain we should retain in our system and create, reuse, store and drain the water only when we don't need it. We want to move to a circular and climate positive economy. We need adaptive spatial planning because climate change is not stopping in 2030 or in 2050, unfortunately. So we have to keep adapting to changing circumstances. And we want to move towards a nature inclusive or nature positive society. So by everything we do, we want to help nature forward and restore nature instead of breaking it down. And if you redesign the Netherlands based on these guiding principles, we move a little bit from this picture to this picture. So we thought, why don't we visualize a nature-based future for the Netherlands on a map? And we turned the map on the side to give another perspective, but also to show that the Netherlands is a delta country and we really need to start thinking in another way. And this map contains a lot of information. We say we produce a lot of more energy at sea, also nature reserves at sea. We also start producing much more food at sea in the future. We will let the coast grow with sea level rise, so we will protect us from flooding. We will have much more space for the rivers, and not only the big rivers, but also the small rivers. Our landscape will become sponges, and we will have much more wetlands, much more forest, much more wet nature reserves, and we will have a different food system where we produce food, plant-based food for people on the best soils we have, but in a regenerative way, so in balance with nature. And our cities will become much more green, and we build houses only in places that are not flood prone. We are building a lot of houses in the flood prone areas at the moment, but we say, okay, we have to start building in the higher areas of our country. So in a nutshell, a nature-based vision for the Netherlands. And every region of the Netherlands has region-specific nature-based strategies. The peatlands have different strategies than the river areas or the cities or the sandy soils. Nature-based solutions are very region-specific. So we came up with all kinds of solutions for every region, developed by 20 experts in Wageningen. And so we published that in December 2019, and then what happened was that, it exploded in the media. It was in all the newspapers. I was invited on TV to tell about it. And in the last 3 years, we have been discussing our vision with, almost everybody, I think, with ministers, ministries, municipalities, provinces, with farmers, with businesses, with the European Commission. And everybody was very enthusiastic about this long-term vision. And the most important thing I learned about this is that people are really in need of a hopeful perspective, because everybody is sick of all this alarming news and all the bad news, and we want to show actually where we want to go. And this picture, this map, a little bit show the way. And we always said it's not a plan, it's not a blueprint, it's just to inspire and set the discussion about the future we want. And that's exactly what we need. And we also said, well, the Netherlands could be a very nice living lab for nature-based solutions that we need all over the world, because we have the knowledge, we also have the money to be a showcase for a nature-based future for all countries all over the place. And even our engineered country, as we are in the Netherlands, can turn the tide towards a nature-based future. And then the question came up, well, nice, a nature-based future for the Netherlands, but why don't you do that? Shouldn't you do that for Europe? Because nature doesn't care about political borders. So we actually should scale up. And we said, okay, let's try it. So this year we had several design sessions with all kinds of students. Maybe some of you were involved. To design a nature-based future for Europe, because we wanted to show the way of thinking we applied for the Netherlands 2120. Why couldn't we apply that on a European scale? Which is also very challenging, but we tried, and we also developed a map, a nature-based map for Europe. The scale is a little bit different from the Netherlands, so it's more difficult to see what exactly you can see there. But it's built up in several layers, and also built up in several regions to tell a nature-based story for Europe. And well, for instance, the water layer showing much more space for water in Europe. Landscapes as sponges. We will have clean water. We will have drinkable rivers. That's what we want. So we move towards a nature-based Europe with much more space for nature, much more forest, for instance, but also ecological corridors connecting nature reserves throughout the network of nature in Europe, and much more wetlands. And of course, that also means that we still can produce food. But also there we will produce food much more in balance with nature. We use our best soils to produce food, plant-based food for people all over Europe, much more in balance with nature. And well, all these layers together provide an integrated map of a nature-based future for Europe. And we presented that 2 weeks ago, I don't know, in Brussels. And this map is also divided in several regions, because also here every region has its region-specific nature-based strategies. So Scandinavia, the Atlantic region, the Mediterranean region, every region has its own specific strategies the way forward. And our message actually was not that we in Wageningen can develop the future of Europe. People and experts and stakeholders in all these regions actually have to do that themselves. But we just wanted to show this is how you can develop a vision like that. And we think it's very, very important that we start doing that, not only for the Netherlands, not only for Europe, but we have to start doing that for every region in the world. And of course, talking about nature-based solutions is important. Creating evidence base about how nature-based solutions can help us and help society forward is really important. But we have to start accelerating because we are running out of time. And well, there's a lot of discussion about nature-based solutions, but there's also a huge need for money to start investing in nature-based solutions. A report, State of Finance report, showed that we need at least 700 billion euros, or dollars, a year around the world to start investing in nature-based solutions, which is bigger than the hydrogen, the green hydrogen market and the chip market together. So we need much more attention for the importance of nature-based solutions, and imagining nature-based futures can help to put nature-based solutions on the political agenda. And I think that's what we need to do. Well, this picture is also from the latest IPCC report, and it's showing several pathways to the future. And I think, well, also in IPCC and also scientists all over the world, but also the media is focusing a lot on, well, the worst case scenarios, the future we don't want, the 4-degree warmer world, where we will have a very, very difficult future, leading us to this future. And I think we have to put much more effort to create stories, narratives, visions, action plans to the future we want. The 1.5 degree warmer world, leading us to a much more hopeful future. And actually this, well, this pathway reminds me a little bit of this marathon, because it was an uphill marathon. And I think we all need to run this marathon. We all need to run this uphill marathon towards this 1.5 degree warmer world. But we have to put much effort to reach that. It will be very, very difficult, but I believe it's not impossible. And so we still have to put a lot of effort to get there. And well, to finalize my presentation, I would say we need to start developing nature-based futures, visualizing nature-based futures on various skills. So we did that already for the Netherlands, but it was just the beginning. So we have to start further developing that in the future as well. Well, we made a first sketch for Europe, but I think, and I believe we have to do that for every country and every region in the world, to start creating awareness and accelerate nature-based action. And well, this student challenge is helping to create a nature-based vision, well, not for the Netherlands and not for Europe, but we do it for Bangladesh. And I'm very proud that we start doing that, and I'm really looking forward to the results of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. That's very inspiring. Before we hand over the questions, we have a microphone box here for questions from the room. And then again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat if you're online. Maybe a very quick question, because when you made this report for Europe, you worked with 50 students, I think. This was also actually your initiative to have this nature-based, solutions-based future challenge. Can you say something about your experience in working with students? Are they more imaginative, or why do you think it's so important to involve young generation?
Yeah, first of all, of course, like I said, if you want to talk about the future, well, it's your future. You will walk longer on this planet than me, I'm afraid. So I think it's very important to involve the future. But also what you see is involving students. They have a lot of creative ideas, and we, if you work for a long time, you're already a little bit starting to have a narrow vision of what is possible. And if you're young, you still have an open mind, and that's what we need. So we need energy and open-minded people to think about how you want the future to look like, and I think that's really energizing.
All right, you're all invited. So hands, please, if you have a question.
Hello, so I'm Rahmat. So our team is wondering about the solution. So the question would be like, to what extent do you expect for the solution, whether it's about like policy design solution or business-based solution or even mixed solution for this?
Policy-based or business-based?
Yeah, so we can select either, I mean, one job, or mixing also is feasible.
Yeah, it's all feasible, of course. But I think what is always important considering nature-based solutions is that it also, because there's a lot of discussion about nature-based solutions. I didn't put that in my presentation. Sometimes they say just plant trees, and we call that a nature-based solution because you can sequester a lot of carbon. I think it's always really important that it also helps biodiversity forward. So I don't know. There are some regulations and ideas about where a good nature-based solution, what boundary conditions we need for these nature-based solutions. One of them is that it always increases biodiversity, and the other one is that it's very important to that local communities are also involved in developing these nature-based solutions, because we cannot just say, okay, you start doing that, or this is the solution, and nobody's involved. So I think these two boundary conditions are really important.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, in the design of your plan for Europe as well as the Netherlands, is it based more on ideology, or is it also including the societal implications, like that it might need a systemic change or these kinds of factors?
Yeah, no, so to start realizing this, we need a systemic change, because it really needs a change on, well, everything we do, actually, where we build houses, how we produce food, our economy. But we wanted to show everything that is on the map is already, it's not wishful thinking. It's all there. The nature-based solutions that we put on the map are already available. We know that they work, they are possible, they are scalable. So it's not like, I wouldn't say it's ideology. It's a realistic scenario for the future. The way to get there will be very difficult, because we need to change a lot, especially how we produce food in the Netherlands, for instance. But by putting a long-term vision, and especially 2120, it's very far away, that opens the floor to have a good discussion about what future we actually want in the Netherlands. And that's what we experienced all over the place. So with municipalities and ministries, we have had fantastic discussions about, this is some very smart direction to go. But the ways to get there and the decisions we have to make today to reach that long-term vision, that's the difficult part. but it starts with having a clear goal of where you want to go. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of interesting questions from the audience. I'll just say that questions about Bangladesh and the local context will be answered later in the presentation of Maheen. For now, I'll start with, well, quite a specific question. How many models, topics, or parameters did you use to make the picture of the Netherlands and Europe in 2120?
Well, it's a very good question. We did not use any model. So we didn't calculate anything, but we used expert knowledge to develop this map. But I think the most important thing is that we had a multidisciplinary team. So we had experts from different fields that we brought together with the map of the Netherlands on the table and start discussing about what kind of solutions we can apply. And so we had hydrologists, climate experts, soil experts, forest experts, ecologists, marine biologists, economists, landscape architects, don't forget them because they're really important. Start drawing things. And I think that was the trick. So we didn't calculate things, but we made some very important assumptions. For instance, how many people we think will live in the Netherlands in 2120, and how much sea level rise we will have in 2120. So you need some of these assumptions to start creating a scenario, and then we presented it just as one scenario.
Okay. My question more is like feasibility as in presuming like human cost. Let's say you have a delta with lots of people living in it, like Bangladesh, and you want to return it to nature, but doing so would displace 1 million people. Do we presume that we can do that for the nature-based solutions and we find a nice housing situation, but it does cause a lot of displacement and disruption to the society? Is that a viable option within our thing? How much do we have to consider the feasibility of like the political side of these things? Like not just the economic trade-off, but if we have to remove these really ingrained parts of society, if a city is located in a floodplain, can we just leave it there? Do we have to tell the people to move? What's the feasibility on dealing with people?
Yeah, I think it's good if you start thinking about the long term, that also some very difficult issues should come on the table. And if that is the case, then I think you could say something about that. And I shouldn't worry too much about the political discussions for the short term, because this is what we need. We need a long-term vision. And if sea level rise or flood risk, like also in the Netherlands, at the moment we are building 1 million houses. 800,000 of them are planned in flood-prone areas. So we actually say we have to start thinking about building these houses in another area. But we didn't say we start removing Amsterdam and The Hague in the Netherlands yet. But I think later than 2120 we have to consider that, and maybe in Bangladesh that could be faster. I don't know that. Maybe Maheen knows.
I promised one question from online. Thanks. Okay, I see a lot of questions about Bangladesh, but we'll answer those later. Some questions also about social inequalities and how do nature-based solutions can address income inequalities that come from it. So maybe that's the...
Well, like I just said, it's always very important to take social aspects in consideration if you start thinking about nature-based solutions. And if you just say, okay, everything has to become nature and people cannot live anymore somewhere anymore, then that might be not the best solution, because we have to, we live together with nature. We cannot remove all the people and say you all have to start living in Tibet or something like that.
More questions? One more.
I'm also wondering the process of developing a one scenario. For example, like you start thinking about the objective, and then you start thinking about the concern of the need, or what is the process, or maybe what's the prioritization to develop one scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you of course need a lot of information about the natural aspects of a country, how it is at the moment. You also need a lot of information about climate scenarios. So what climate challenges are there in the region. And then you have to start, and also about socio-economic aspects for the future. And then you have to start developing what kind of nature-based solutions could we apply in this kind of regions. And then region by region, you have to start thinking of, well, what scalable nature-based solutions would be the best option for that region. And then you can start designing that and visualizing how that future could look like.
There was one final question over there.
It is a nice goal and a nice kind of future to work to, a nice future to work to. And in different parts of the world, you have different kind of nature-based solutions that fits best. But there are also, I guess, different sectors that take different actions. Different nature-based solutions are good for different sectors. Are there maybe already, you have many ideas already now, ideas that you think, yeah, these sectors, there are already so many opportunities. Maybe we can already do something now.
What do you mean by sector?
A sector like in energy or in the food sector, in clothing. There are, I think, very different possibilities for different places.
Yeah, and there are there are a lot of different nature-based solutions. But I think, for instance, for the Netherlands, but it also counts for Europe, and I think also for many parts of the world, if you want to create space for nature-based solutions, it's always good to also look at the food production sector, because half of the land cover in the world is for producing food. So if you can start producing food in another way, or maybe much more plant-based, or much more in balance with nature, that does mean something for the space we have. Because one disadvantage of nature-based solutions is that it needs space, and that's why I think the Netherlands is such a nice country to start thinking about nature-based solutions. Because if we lack something, then it's space. So if we can do it here, we can do it everywhere. But I think in many countries, well, the link to nature-based solutions and a different way of producing food is very very strong. A lot of good questions.
Yeah, thanks everyone for those questions, and thank you so much, Tim, for being here and showing your inspiring examples. And I hope you will stay around a little bit after, to answer more questions. So thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck, everybody.
Okay, so it's great to hear there are already so many questions about the local situation in Bangladesh, because I think we really need you up here, Maheen. What I didn't say in my introduction, apart from all your professional roles and titles, you were also born in Bangladesh. And so I'm really looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Do you have my presentation up? Oh. Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay, great. This is a great turnout. And at the outset, I want to say that I'm probably not going to be able to answer all your questions, especially the ones that are coming from online, but I will definitely try my best. Hi, everyone. Late good afternoon or good evening to all of you attending today at this hour, especially those of you here live. I'm Maheen, and I'm born and brought up in Bangladesh. I've lived in a few countries myself. I used to live in Australia, and I sort of dabbled with a few career options before I ended up in this one, which I like very much. And I'm really looking forward to take you on a journey with me, you can say, or whatever you want to call it, on Bangladesh. And from Tim's vision, I want to do a little bit of retrospection. So I'm going to go back to history a little bit. One of the things that I always think about in life, and it's obviously my mother, I think our mothers somehow
pop up in our minds in the strangest of times is when I was growing up, I used to really despise exams. I really did not like tests or exams. They gave me anxiety. Give me assignments, homework, I'll do it because I don't like this race against time. So whenever I used to go to give my exams, my mother used to tell me, make sure you read the question properly. Make sure you understand the question. And even your teachers, your math teachers would ask you, make sure you understand the math problem. Then when I studied sustainability science, I see my colleague here, who's also a very good friend of mine. We were both students of the same master and also colleagues teaching at Maastricht University. One of the main things we learned to facilitate for students was problem definition. So really understand the problem. And I think that's the starting point. And that's an advice of my mother's that I kept. I can't say I kept all her advices, but that's definitely the one that stuck with me the most. So I want to set the scene a little bit before I start on a nature-based future from Bangladesh. And as many of you who's made my life easier by asking questions, is that it is not an easy task. So I'm going to go back to 1970. Some of the texts are missing from this presentation, but it's okay. So Bangladesh gained independence in 1971. It was then known as East Pakistan. In 1947, after the partition of India, Pakistan and India severed ties, and then there was East Pakistan and West Pakistan, often known as the wings, beside the Indian map, if you see the map of the world. And very interestingly, I don't know, I mean, this came out when I was doing my master's research. I didn't know this myself, is that a major catastrophic disaster actually pulled the trigger that made Bangladesh an independent country. And this is the tropical cyclone Bhola, which took place in the year 1970. It killed more than 300,000 people. It affected an estimated 4.8 million people. And it made landfall on 12th November, after which around 250 or more than 250,000 people, along with thatched houses, agricultural and pastoral livelihoods, were swept away by tidal waters because of the cyclone. And it's very interesting because Bangladesh, or the then East Pakistan, was already struggling with its autonomy. And there were already movements and protests that were going on for greater power because the country was, or the region was not very well managed by the dominant government in West Pakistan. Movements such as the language movement in 1952, the 6-point movement in 1966, the latter which demanded greater autonomy, were preceded by this event, which is the Bhola cyclone, which ultimately catapulted East Pakistan to the independent country that it is now. It led to a landslide victory of the Awami League party, which won the election, in the East Pakistan by 160 seats, and therefore the whole narrative and future changed. Now, that one cyclone in 1970 also led to policy formations in the country which looked into disasters. And therefore, if you read about Bangladesh now, you'll come across a lot of literature on its disaster preparedness. One single event has something to do with disaster and nature. So this is the map of Bangladesh, the political map of Bangladesh, and these are the hydrological regions in the country. I'm not going to explain the map, but what I really wanted to talk about is that the problems in Bangladesh are all water problems. Water is obviously a problem for the entire world, but Bangladesh is a very uniquely situated country geographically. These are the future climate characteristics. Warmer and wetter climate by 2050, except for the post-monsoon season. Increase in rainfall during the monsoon with a more erratic pattern. So we are already experiencing that and currently experiencing that in the country as well. Increased flows in the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Meghna of up to 20%, driven by the higher precipitation, increased water levels, severity of cyclones, intensity of droughts, higher sea level. You name it, we have it all. It's there. But I wanted to summarize all these issues into four main issues. Glacier melt from the Himalayas because of the situation or the location of the country. You've got water coming in. So two Himalayan rivers, which are the Ganges and Brahmaputra, drains through river migration to the Bay of Bengal. We have, of course, intensified monsoon season with more rainfall and erratic rainfall patterns, more cyclones and storm surges coming from the Bay of Bengal. And then, of course, we have sea level rise. So we are really bombarded from all sides, if you think about it, with water. There are so many issues coming in. So after setting that, sort of a little bit of political ecology and then understanding the climatic challenges that we face, let's understand the delta. I'm sure many of you already do, but let's go a little bit into detail. This is a picture that I got from this latest book, which is called it's a second edition of a book that was written a few years ago. It's called Moving Coastlines. If you are working for a future, for nature-based future for Bangladesh, highly recommend accessing that book because it has a lot of information, a lot of great information. So the Bengal Delta is very, very dynamic, not only because of its geomorphological situation, but also because of social, economic, political, environmental issues that all kind of marry into each other and create this interesting situation, complex dynamic in the Delta. So this Bengal Delta, Bangladesh sits almost entirely on it. It is a unique formation of two Himalayan rivers, which I said, Ganges and Brahmaputra, Ganga, Brahmaputra, and the Meghna, which is a non-Himalayan river, all draining along the country into the Bay of Bengal. This delta building process is an accumulation of migration and formation of chor, which I'm going to say chars in English, and riverbank slumping. So what are chars, which is going to be another important element that I'm going to talk about. So chor or chars are sort of islands that come up downstream because of siltation. So because of erosion, land erosion, these islands come up which are made of sand and silt. And it's very interesting because they keep forming along the river lines. So this dynamic situation, because you've got water coming in from here, you've got water here, it leads to a lot of movement in this region, especially within the chors and the coastal communities. What happens is when land is eroded, a lot of people migrate to these newly emerged chor or chars for better for settling there, building a community, getting livelihoods. They're also quite fertile lands because of sedimentation. So they keep moving. So there's a huge internal migration, displacement migration, whatever you call it, going on around this area already. Coastal communities, and I don't think I have to mention this, they face plethora of issues. And in the Bangladesh Delta, they are also bombarded with all these issues. So think about storms, think about water logging, which I'll get into, drainage congestion, drought, salinity intrusion. Again, all kinds of natural issues you can think of, these communities are facing. They also face issues because of upstream activities. Now, it has been reported, especially in the IPCC, that there is an increase in sedimentation from the rivers along the coastline. The IPCC states around 15 to 50% of increase in sedimentation will happen by 2050. Now, so that's the nature part for you. So the delta, we know a little bit about the water, about the formation, about the rivers converging, also the estuarine rivers which are converging from the Bay of Bengal, and how that creates a very dynamic and ecological environment for the delta. But one important element, well, I think one of the most important elements is the people element, because we cannot imagine a nature-based future without people, without this future also being people-based. So it has to be both, just like we cannot imagine a future without understanding what happened in the past. So I wanted to focus on the chor dwellers, the people who are constantly moving around. So these are very interesting islands. I came across them, well, I knew about them, of course, growing up, but I really started to understanding them when I was doing my research. I did my research, my master's research on social movements and understanding how youth activists work in this specific area to raise awareness on climate change and how they are influencing policies, but also practice. So there are 20 million people who live on these shores around the Delta, which represents 12.5% of the country's population. Approximately 35 million of the population of the country lives in the coastal zone of Bangladesh. Now, these people are constantly in fear of erosion. Floods are obviously a constant threat as well. Poverty in these areas is 2.7 times higher than the national average. Now, these are all statistics and numbers. So I started digging a little bit more into the social makeup of these chores to understand how do these people come together. So what I found out is that the chore is very socially and environmentally dynamic. Different people from other areas, villages and towns, when the erosion happens, they move into these chores, right? And in Bangladesh, we have different communities, religions living there. And we are a traditional conservative society as well. So when these different peoples belonging to different communities come together to live in chores, it's not always peaceful. So they get into conflicts over natural resources, which is already scarce, and also because of the issues they face when it comes to the ecological environment they are exposed to. So what happened is, okay, first of all, there is this sort of conflict and competition over natural resources. Then slowly the society develops. So that's just how evolution works, social evolution. So society develops. And one of the first things that develops is religion. So a society, a community, it's called Shomaj. So there is a council of people who sort of take matters into their own hands for their own particular community. So that's first. Then the mosques come into play, because you have to bring all these people to identify with one another. Otherwise, you will not achieve social cohesion. So religion plays an interesting role here. So when you develop these mosques and madrasas, you see more and more people coming together despite their varied communal backgrounds, and sort of start producing a single identity. And then things slowly move on from there. Then what happens is governments, because these are newly emerged lands, they didn't have government presence there. But slowly that also happens. Then NGOs come in, then international development NGOs come in, education facilities come in, and slowly this society develops. However, I always focus on one main issue, is the vulnerability or the vulnerable populations in any society or in any country. And for me, one of the things that keep coming up when I do research is the vulnerability of women and children who live in these areas. So women are, because of conservative values, traditional values, women are often very, very vulnerable in these chore communities. They often don't have many rights. And a lot of the households actually in the chores are headed by women. Why? Because there's a lot of male out migration. You see, the livelihoods in these chores are very seasonal. You don't have a consistent livelihood all year round. So what men do is that they leave for other jobs in a different town, city, and a lot of the times they don't come back. So these women often face divorces or abandonment by their male partners, and they have to take a lot of responsibility domestically and also community-wise. But they also lack choices, they lack voices, and they are also in a very traditional community. It's almost like a maladaptation, and they're a bit trapped in this social makeup of these communities. Their mobility is restricted. They often don't have land rights, and they have to not only cater to their own family, but sometimes they also take responsibility of the communities that they live in. So it becomes a very volatile and a very, very complicated place to live in for women. And that's not only in the chores, that's in a lot of communities in the country. However, that's not all communities. Recently, I was speaking, well, last night actually, I wanted to get some fresh field information, and an acquaintance of mine who's working in Bangladesh right now near the Sundarbans, which is one of the largest mangrove forests in the world. I wanted some information about how, these people are coping, and what are the, climate experiences, climate change experiences, and what kind of role does nature play. So she's from a climate change environmental science background, but she's studying, she's doing her PhD on anthropology and studying a community called the Munda community. They live in a village called Kalinchi, which is near Sundarban. And she was telling me, and I was asking her about women's vulnerability. Of course, all the issues that I've said, this community faces as well. But then I asked her about the vulnerability of women, and she said it's actually quite different. See, the social and economic reality are different for different communities. And these people, they live in the embankments. The social status of women are quite equal to men. Not completely, but they are active agents in society, for the lack of a better word. Now, what that means is that because their reality is so volatile, because of the issues they face other problems, and their problem is the indigenous problem. So they are an indigenous population, and that's quite complicated, not only in Bangladesh but all around the world. So they don't have a lot of access, they lack certain facilities, so they have their own set of problems. Although the gender problem is not there, the indigenous problem is there. Now, in Bangladesh, for example, the constitution does not have the word indigenous or Odibashi, but it does in the last decade or so. It has included ethnic minorities and the importance of preserving their culture, their belief systems. So we are improving upon that. These issues also gives rise to another set of issues, such as land rights or access. So they have their own vulnerability. Apart from this, so you have the social vulnerability, but you're also facing these climatic impacts. So that is a little bit of a local community perspective of these people who are living around the Delta. I will come back to it, or we can discuss it more in the Q&A session. Now, I wanted to very briefly touch upon the Bangladesh Delta Plan. I'm in no way an expert to analyze the Delta Plan, but I have read parts of it and read analysis of it, and I'm quite impressed by it. And I was also talking to Katharina earlier, who's been very much involved in the BDP 2100. And I really enjoyed reading whatever I read of it. And I especially like the hotspot analysis, which is something that you can also see in the NL 2120 and also EU 2120, which is understanding the different regions and its vulnerabilities. The Bangladesh Delta Plan looks at integrated water management throughout the country, which is again very crucial because we are nothing if there is no water. Our problems, our solutions are there all with water. What I really like is that they have the adaptive delta management principle, which is holistic, takes into account people, takes into account nature, and many, many other elements which are very crucial for success. It is very vision and goal oriented. Again, we need a vision. We have to look into something. If you think about the Paris Agreement, where did the 1.5 come from? See, we are all working towards 1.5, no matter what we are doing. The pathways are towards 1.5 because we have a goal. It has sectoral strategies, so it really looks into specific sectors and the strategies that are catered to them. But, and of course, I'm sure the government and also those who are going to implement this Delta Plan into reality knows that it has to be revised and flexible to accommodate the changes in the future. That's the long-term vision. But I also like the mission, which I don't want to read out, but I really like how it brings in issues of sustainability, vulnerability, resilience all together in one statement. And this is what I really like from BDP as well. It sort of talks about all the hotspot regions and what their vulnerabilities are. Now so that's a little bit of a problem definition and also historical events that has happened throughout the country. And now I want to sort of discuss some nature-based solutions or nature-based thinking when it comes to solutions that are happening in the country and that will hopefully scale up and happen more. But this inspiration is not only from nature, but it's also from people. So we have to put them together. So I'm going to talk about tidal river management and mangrove forest afforestation. I'm not going to go into the technical details of it, but I will try my best to give you a picture of why these two are inspired from people and nature. So coming to tidal river management, it's very interesting. In the 1960s, the low-lying delta had a constant threat from flooding, and this led to saltwater intrusion and, of course, the flooding itself. So what they did is that there was a huge project of introducing polders into the region, which helped keep the flooding at bay and then also led to agricultural practices inland on the polders. So it was going well, it was quite successful, it was able to prevent flooding, it was also able to achieve agricultural yields, but after some time, people started noticing the negative impacts from it. Why? Because see, the floodplains were delinked. Therefore, there was siltation or there was sediments and silts that were accumulating in the river, leading to the riverbeds increasing. And that led to waterlogging, which creates an unfavorable environment for crop development. So there were these farmers who were in the, there's a very nice video online as well. They started noticing these trends, and this was around the 80s, 90s, and they voiced their protests, and then they started breaking these dikes. Then they implemented this is informed by local knowledge of those people living there, this old idea of breaking the dikes or breaking the dikes to let the water in. So what happens is that the water comes in with the sediment, leaves the sediment and goes back into the ocean. So what that leads to is sort of like free-flowing water as well. So it prevents the water logging and also enables the land to go up. So if there's sedimentation coming in, there's also twin flows of water in the delta, right? So you've got the Ganges coming in. I'm talking about the southwestern delta, by the way. So you've got the Ganges coming in, and then you have the estuarine rivers from the Bay of Bengal coming in. So what this led to is that when the water came in and went back, the sedimentation also led to increase in land. So it's also a solution that counteracts sea level rise as well. Of course, it's not a perfect solution. It also has its issues, but this is the name that has been given to it, tidal river management, and it is being explored in other parts of the region as well. But what I wanted to talk about, why I wanted to bring this up when I was reading, is that this was brought about by the people who lived in the local communities because they had access to that knowledge. And then that became a solution to the problem and is now in practice and quite successful. Moving on to the mangrove afforestation. Now, this is very much a design from nature. Sundarbans, which is our mangrove forest, protects all the communities that live around that area from cyclones and flooding already, because it's a mangrove forest. And Bangladesh's mangrove forests protect around 1 million people from future climate impacts, but also the vulnerability of the country because of its natural geomorphology. So mangrove afforestation, this was interesting because the Forest Act was amended in 1927, I think. Don't quote me on this. You can Google it if you want. So in 1990-2000, they included the social forestry programs. What these programs did was included the communities who live in these areas in afforestation. And then many projects, the forest department got involved, and now there are afforestation projects happening that has been happening for decades. But interestingly, these mangrove afforestation projects are also taking place in the shores and around the coastal areas to protect from the climate impact. See, mangroves are very, very interesting species. They grow very fast. They sequester carbon 3 times more from tropical forests, and they also protect from saltwater intrusion. They also protect from storms. So they have very strong roots, and they grow on the saltwater as well. So they have multiple benefits that they provide to society, but there's another thing. They also create favorable livelihoods, because there are fish nurseries and shrimp and prawn cultivation that can also take place, and also other livelihoods such as timber and so on. So that's a very, very nature-based solution that is now being actually tested and explored. And Bangladesh did this pioneering afforestation a few decades ago, which is still in place. Of course, there has been destruction as well, but the BDP, the Bangladesh Delta Plan, not only has a plan on foresting mangrove plantations, but also restoring the ones that have been degraded. So I am a climate advisor, and I come from a business background. I then went into sciences and policy, and you might be asking, why am I talking, or why did I bring in history here when we are talking about the future? But like I mentioned, I don't think if we don't understand how history has panned out, then we won't be able to imagine a future, because we will miss a lot of information that is crucial for us to have that vision of a future. Think about yourself. When you think about a career, when you think about this is what I'm going to be, you already know who you were in the past. And then that's how you slowly evolve to that vision of yours. In my opinion, for climate change, we need to have this narrative on nature. We need to have this narrative on hope. But we have to fundamentally restructure and repair our relationship with nature. Historically, we did not have this relationship. We have degraded nature. It was all about extractivism. We need to change that. Again, when we are discussing nature-based solutions, I would always suggest and hope that we do not once again become extractive and say, okay, we now need nature to help us. I don't want us to do that again, like go back to nature, something that we have destroyed, and then now let's go back to nature and ask for help. No, we have to work with nature. How do we harmonize this relationship? And it's tough. The population of the world is increasing. And how do we get a lot of people to start thinking about nature in a different way other than the one that has been there in the past? Two of my favorite things that I always used to tell my students, and also whenever I get asked this question, what would you do if you were a policymaker? 2 things: I would increase the role of arts. So think about literature, art, and anything creative to start mending this relationship. And another thing is sports. Netherlands is very well known for it. Having this, like you're a marathon runner, I'm also a runner, not a marathon runner, unfortunately, yet. But engaging in outdoor sports will regenerate that relationship between people and nature, because once you start interacting with nature in that way, you really, really not only write about ecosystem services in your thesis and your research, but actually understand what ecosystem services are. So when we are thinking about a nature-based future, what do we have to do? I feel extremely honored and privileged to be standing in front of you and talking about Bangladesh, my country where I've grown up, especially because this is a very diverse international body of students. You come from different faculties, you're coming in teams, you're bringing different kind of creative ideas for this challenge. And that's exactly what my vision or my hope is when we start looking into solutions. So we need to consider the intersection of issues: social, environmental, economic, political. So we really need to understand these things and how they intersect. I've already given you an example of what happens in around the coastline and in the shores. We really, really need to focus on the justice element. We need to focus on vulnerable people, vulnerable women, children, indigenous population, disabled people when we are designing these futures. We need to do multidisciplinary thinking. I don't have to tell you that. Tim already touched upon it, and that's why you're here today. So political ecologists, economists, policy advisors, politicians, activists, everyone has to sit together at a table. No matter how much they hate each other, they have to get on that table and sit with NGOs as well, who are practitioners, and also local communities, the key, the glue that holds all of this together. We should not only talk about inclusivity and justice and including vulnerable population, we should walk that talk. And we should understand the barriers that have been in place for such a long time. We should address the issue of language, culture, and values, which often acts as a thin line between interacting with local communities who are often inaccessible because of these reasons. And finally, I know all of these things to consider is time intensive, and we are in an absolute rush to save the world, but I think patience is a virtue. We have 7 years. So let's take our time when we are designing, thinking, let's understand the problem, like my mother said, and then go to the solution. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Maheen. Let me move to this slide. That was very inspiring, and thank you for stressing the need for a long-term vision, even when threats are so imminent. I'm quickly going to go to questions. We have time for a few. We're running a little bit over, so let's quickly move.
All right, so thank you for the opportunity. Hello, Maheen, I'm Rahmat. So it's really nice when you portray about like the real condition of Bangladesh. Then we are wondering about like, could you portray more about like indigenous population problem in the real condition of Bangladesh? Then is there any like work or power division among between men and women in that area? That's why we can figure out like the practical and feasible solution later on. Thank you.
It's a very difficult question. I'm not sure if I should answer that. Yes, there is power structures that are evident between gender and also settlers and indigenous population, but they are manifold and they are diverse. And like I said, they also differ from community to community. So if you're designing, which I think you're part of a team and you're designing, I heard you earlier, I would, all I can say is yes, there is. Like any other part of the world, also in Bangladesh it is, but Bangladesh is a bit more socially complex. And like I said, the migration pattern that's going around in Delta, the competition for resources, the survival for life really because of what goes on, makes things a bit more complex. Maybe this is sort of putting my hat on as a thesis supervisor, is that focus on which community you want to look at. So there are 3 regions of the coastal zone on Bangladesh that has been, that's on the map. So you've got the center, you've got the southwest, and you've got the southeast. Focus on one region and then explore the social dynamics in that region. But all I can say is yes. I hope that helps.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, we actually have many good questions of the online audience. Unfortunately, I can only ask a few. So to start, how does the planning integrate with national policies and regulations? And how do you ensure that the solutions implemented are maintained and protected?
Yeah, now we're taking out the big guns online. So Bangladesh has created, or there are a lot of policy instruments in place. There are a lot of policies that are in place, for example, the climate strategy. There's also the Bangladesh Delta Plan and multiple others. I can't say it at the top of my head. See, there is slowly bubbling an enabling environment because, we are facing harsh consequences, and disproportionately so because of our, historically as we know it. One of the biggest challenges is trickling down of the plan. So we have the plans, we have implementation, but often for various reasons, when the solutions that have to, and it has to be locally led, it has to be locally informed and stakeholder informed. Oftentimes we see that the finance, the capacity that is needed to trickle down from top, there are a lot of leakages, and therefore it doesn't always lead to fruitful implementation. However, there are many examples that are fruitful as well. The other thing is the project nature. So because Bangladesh is more than 52 years old now, and we have had a lot of international development, NGOs, aid agencies that have helped in the process of our development. But a lot of these projects are project-based. So they are short cycle, just like, politics as well. It's very short cycle. The project is done, you've achieved the outcomes, you've achieved the outputs, and then you're gone. That is also another issue. We need to think about programmatic. We need to put on our programmatic lens, and we also need to ensure more integration with local government, with local stakeholders, and like I said, the social, the religious, other community elements together. And that's always a challenge, but I don't think it's impossible. It's just that we have to keep doing it and speak loudly enough till it's done.
Okay, thank you very much, Maheen. Thank you so much for coming to Wageningen. I think we have to leave the questions here. Maybe there's a way to collect the online questions, but I think you will be one of the coaches in the challenge, so you won't be all out of sight. So thank you so much, Maheen.
You're welcome.
So I'm quickly moving on to Marta Eggers. She's a project leader, project manager at the Wageningen Student Challenges, and she's leading the Nature-Based Futures Challenge.
Okay. No? Huh? Yes. Okay, that's my slide. So you have listened to Maheen, you have listened to Tim, and I think that many people who are now sitting in the audience are really thinking, okay, I want to do something. So I saw that there are some people who have red dots on their name tags. Can you maybe raise your hands? Yes, so those people are definitely participating in the Nature-Based Future Challenge because you are looking for a team, right? So if you have if you are going to chat with each other in a moment, make sure to meet each other and exchange who you are and what are you wanting to do. Are there also people here who are participating in the challenge and already have a team? Okay, I'm really curious also about you. Well, in any case, for the other ones as well, if you now really like feeling I want to do something, then I would like to invite you to participate in the Nature-Based Future Challenge, which will be running this autumn in Wageningen. Yes, okay, sorry. And what are you going to do is basically you are going to take up the challenge that Tim has set up for you. So he was talking about having this nature positive vision for all the regions of all the world. Well, we're not going to do it for all the regions of all the world, but you're going to do it for Bangladesh. And this is what you have to take into consideration. And the challenge is open to everybody all over the world. And there are many different relevant disciplines. And we talked about this interdisciplinarity, that it's really important. And especially in that team, in this challenge, you have to make sure that you have all the disciplines at the table to design it. And the challenge is going to start on 29th of November, and it's going to end on 11th of June, and we'll have 3 runs. And I think now you need to start listening about how the challenge is going to be will take shape. So actually it is a competition. So at the end of every round, there will be a selection moment. And as a team, you will be working towards a milestone report. And based on this report, it will be decided who will make it to the next round. It is, on the other hand, it's also a learning experience. So we'll try to make it to help you as much as possible to find your way into the challenge. So how we structured is at the beginning of every round, there is, we call it a studio. So that's a moment when you get together with your team and with the experts from team's team, and also with the local stakeholders from Bangladesh to get some input on how to move forward. And from the second round onward, also the coaches from the company that are part of this challenge will come in, and they will be specifically helping one or two teams, like per coach, to get moving. So you will have support from different directions that will help you to shape your project. However, I have to say that the second round is only for the top 20 teams that will make it there. And then at the end of the third round, there will be grand finals for the 10 top finalists. We also provide some different workshops, so on storytelling and other things that you might find important in the challenge. And I just realized, so I also wanted to give a little bit of explanation what we will be working towards in every round of the challenge. So in the first round, you will focus on making an analysis of this local situation. So you already got some input from Maheen. We'll also have an info session in a couple of weeks with another expert who will provide some more input. We'll provide you with the data for the Bangladesh Delta. And there will be also a meeting with local experts who will help you to interpret this data during the first studio. So you will have a lot of input to make your analysis, and then you will start already to work on this vision. So actually start drawing the map, let's say, but the very first draft. And then you will get feedback from the selection committee, who will look on different aspects, and based on this feedback, you will be able to improve, hopefully, on your vision, make it stronger. But in the second round, you also start working on the transition path. So actually, the part what we were also touching upon during that discussion, like, okay, so there's this nature-based future that we all want, but we are here stuck with how the situation is now. So what are the steps that we need to take tomorrow, in 5 years, in 7 years, in 50 years? That's what you will be also working out in the second round. And in the last round, you will focus on one specific region and work out this more specific design for that region, and work on the pitch video for the selection for the jury. Yes, and I already mentioned there will be some workshops and also this coaching. You already see the partners of the challenge, quite some famous names. So it's also opportunity for you to get to know those partners and to learn about what are the job and traineeship opportunities perhaps, but also a lot of expertise is there. I have talked so far to four companies, and they are really very passionate about the topic, but also very knowledgeable about it. So if you are really interested in nature-based solutions, about the nature-based future and vision, how you get there, I think those are really great people to help you to get there and to learn as much as possible about it. Well, what is there for you by participating in the challenge? Last time when I was giving the presentation, the attention went to the prize, but that's of course only for the winning team. You might be among this winning team, you might end up not winning the challenge, but then there is still plenty you can get out of it. So I talked about this learning experience. Well, if you're really interested in this topic, I think this is the place to be in any way. And about the coaches who are really very great people to talk and to help you ahead. But also look at this room. There are so many people from so many angles. So this challenge also brings together so many interesting people. And by participating, you get to know really interesting people. Also, I think we are now at 250 registrations from all over the world. So that's like a kind of almost a movement that is happening here. Well, and then more practical things, I think there will be also certificates for the top 20 teams. And I think for maybe online audiences, it's more important that for the people who will make it to the finals will provide some budget for attending the grand finals. So you can imagine that the grand finals, and if you don't make it there, it will be really a great celebration and a moment to get to know each other and to network. Yes, and how to join? It's very simple. I know that many of you have already joined, but if you now think, okay, I really want to try it, go for this QR code and do it before 19th of November. And if you have a lot of specific questions, or you would like to hear more about every single phase of the challenge, then join us on 17 October for the info session, because we'll be going much more into detail about it. And then you will also meet another expert on Bangladesh and a student who participated in our other challenge, who will share her experience of doing this this journey. Yes, thank you. So, any questions? No, I think, I see one question from Thomas.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I was wondering, is it also open for already graduated students?
Yeah, so you can participate in the challenge up to 1 year after your graduation. Very practical questions. Yeah. Okay. Monica, any other questions from online? No? Okay, then I think everything is clear, and otherwise you can ask the questions during the drinks, and make sure to talk to each other if you plan to participate in the challenge and still looking for some other team members.
Okay, I think that's the signal that we need to close. Thank you all so much for joining, everyone here in the room, everyone online. We say goodbye to our online viewers, and everyone here is invited to have a drink and another chat to each other and the speakers. Thank you.